Good evening, everybody. Adequate notice of this meeting, as required by the Open Public Meetings Act, was provided through the posting, mailing, and filing of the annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings of the Town Council on December 12, 2023. The notice was, on that date, posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, provided to the Westfield Leader in the Star Ledger, and filed with the clerk of the Town of Westfield. Ms. Lawshe, may I have a roll call?
Mayor Brindle?
Here.
Councilmembers Hapgood?
Here.
Dardia?
Here.
Domagala?
Here.
Kiefer?
Here.
Saunders?
Here.
Armento?
Here.
Contract? Here. Matt?
Please rise for the invocation, which we give by Councilman Domagala, and remain standing for the salute to the flag.
As we begin this meeting, let us take a moment to appreciate the privilege and responsibility we have been given to serve our community. Let us seek the highest ideals, honesty, integrity, and compassion in our interactions and decisions. May our differences inspire dialogue rather than division, and may our shared goals unite us in purpose. Let us move forward with the open hearts and minds committed to doing the well-being of all. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Should we go? Nothing from you? All right, we'll start with the most important thing of the night. Come on, girls, come on up. This is our Girl Scout proclamation. And I do want to say I wore green for the occasion. Miss Bragger wore green for the occasion, and Miss Hapgood actually wore her satin from her dates. Exactly. So come on up. Come over here. I was telling these girls I had a group of first grade daisies from Tamaulipas today. Last week I had second graders, and then I ran into the Girl Scouts in front of the Starbucks on Sunday and came home with 5 boxes of cookies. So I have been celebrating Girl Scout Week all week long. So this is always a highlight for me. All right, you ready, girls? And thank you for once again coming and doing this. Really love this. Whereas March 12th, 2024 marks the 112th anniversary of Girl Scouts of the USA, the largest and most successful leadership program for girls in the world. And whereas, as the world's premier leadership development organization for girls, Girl Scouts has emphasized public service, civic engagement, and fostering a sense of community in girls for over a century. And whereas Girl Scouts work to champion the ambitions, cultivate the talents, and develop the skills of girls to be leaders in their own world and in ours. And whereas, in these incredibly challenging times, Girl Scouts provides community, consistency, and connection for girls, and is a safe haven in all the uncertainty. And whereas, at a time when civics education is missing from many schools, Girl Scouts has introduced new K-12 civics badges to bring girls more experiences that deepen their understanding of democracy and government, prepare them for a lifetime of civic engagement, and motivate them to be catalysts for change. And whereas Girl Scouts offers girls 21st century programming in science, technology, engineering, and math, the outdoors, entrepreneurship, and beyond, helping girls develop invaluable life skills and take the lead early and often. And whereas Gold Award Girl Scouts already take on projects that have a measurable and sustainable impact on the community by first assessing a need, designing a solution, completing a project, and inspiring others to sustain it. And whereas today, more than 50 million women are Girl Scouts alums, including me, and whereas Girl Scouts Heart of New Jersey serves nearly 13,000 girls across the state. Now therefore, I, Shelley Brindle, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of Westfield, do hereby applaud the Girl Scout movement and Girl Scouts Heart of New Jersey for providing girls with a safe, inclusive, all-girls space where they can hone their skills and develop leadership abilities. And I declare March 10th through 16th to be Girl Scout Week. Congratulations, girls. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Okay, so Jim, nothing, you're all good? Okay. All right, so before we get into the evening's agenda, I just want to update everybody on a few things like I always do. Thank you for everybody who's here in person and joining us online. Just remember, public comments only accepted here in person. You can always watch online and in the replay. A few items of interest to the community. One very exciting is the fact that there is a national champion track team in our midst. You know, Jim Gilday never likes to do a special shout out, but it's worth noting that his son is one of these national champions on that 4x100 meter relay. And today I had the mom of the anchor, Alex, send me a note of when he was here with his Cub Scouts in like 7 years ago, and now he's a national champion. So it made me realize how long I've been here. But anyway, it really is quite momentous. And I think, are they coming next meeting? Are we going to see them?
Boys swim team and the winter track team.
And the winter track team, which is incredible. And although, you know, the 4x100 meter relay team won the national championship, which is in itself incredible in Boston, but the whole boys and girls team really had, I mean, they set personal records, school records. It's just quite a legacy that they're building at Westfield High School. So excited to see them and coaches next week, so March 26th. And just a few other updates related to transportation. So some of you know that I am the co-chair of the Raritan Valley Line Mayors Association, along with Fanwood Mayor Colleen Mayor, Commissioner Kathleen Prunty in Cranford. And we had been very active prior to COVID, and then things kind of took a pause because of COVID. And now we're gearing back up to really re-engage New Jersey Transit now that there has been some kind of normalcy, but different commuting patterns, and we hope that there's some opportunities maybe to talk about revisiting more one-seat ride train service to Manhattan in light of that. So, and the Gateway Tunnel, hopefully you guys have been following it, I certainly have, has broken ground, it's moving forward, and it has the promise of delivering a one-seat ride to Westfield when it's finally completed in 2035. But we don't want to wait that long. But the fact that we actually have promise is I tell people, if you're moving into Westfield and you've got a 2-year-old, by the time they're in high school, your property values are going to go up. So, but to that end, tomorrow night, Mayor Prunty, Mayor Marr and Commissioner Prunty and I are going to be attending an event for the Gateway Corporation with the commissioners to hear an update on Gateway. And then we are obviously engaging with New Jersey Transit. Some of you may have seen, I signed a letter as part of as my role in the RVL Mayors Association against fare hikes that they're looking at. New Jersey Transit is considering in light of their $1 billion deficit, which has happened over decades. And unfortunately, administrations on both sides have been raiding the New Jersey Transit operating budget to plug holes in the budget, and it's absolutely caught up with them. So they had initially proposed a fare hike because they need to fill a budget gap, which is not ideal because the way you get more money is to get more riders, and when you raise spikes, you actually diminish riders. So it's not a sustainable strategy. But in the meantime, in the governor's budget address, he did actually propose a 2.5% corporate transit fee on corporations with more than $10 million in net profits that would be specifically and dedicated towards funding transit, New Jersey Transit, which would bring in about $800 million annually. So me and many other organizations have suggested to put a pause on the fare hikes while we see and realize the impact of this, what's being proposed in the governor's budget, to then determine what fare hikes may be necessary. So, so I signed a letter, we'll be going to this Gateway reception, and I just want everybody to know that we are fully re-engaged on conversation with New Jersey Transit about what we can do to improve service, reliability, and hopefully additional one-seat ride service. Very importantly, I don't expect all of you follow what's going on in Trenton, but there's a lot going on in Trenton that people should be paying attention to, a lot of stuff that's being fast-tracked. But I do want to provide an update on affordable housing to follow up. I guess I've sent an update in the last 2 meetings, but I just want to underscore how important this is and the potential impact it has on our community and communities all over the state. So last month, the Assembly passed an affordable housing bill It's called A4, and now the Senate has taken up, it's called S50. There was a Senate committee hearing yesterday where it passed, and it's being barreling through a speedy passage by the full Senate on Monday. I speak to other mayors regularly. Many have alarm bells going off. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's more or less the makeup of your town, depends upon how you react to it. Suburban transit communities like mine are probably extremely and most alarmed. So I've spoken to mayors, both our planning staff, our administrative staff, our affordable housing legal counsel, and there's a lot we have concerns about, but there's two provisions in particular that are very concerning. And it's complex and tricky, so bear with me a little bit. There's a provision that requires land poor municipalities such as ours, and that really means fully built out communities that don't have a lot of vacant land. And there's a provision that is requiring us to create a realistic opportunity to satisfy 25% of our unmet need. And typically the way it works is they give you this number that Fair Share deems that you should be delivering, and then they give you what they call a vacant land adjustment, determined on how much you can build. And that happened this past round. Now what they're saying is they're gonna take away some of that vacant land adjustment and reduce that adjustment by 25%. And it's a change that would have a significant impact on the number of affordable units requiring for us. So for example, in the previous round, you have your requirement of what you have to meet, and then you have this unmet need. And what that means is, in our case, we have 998 units that they say are unmet, but we have to prove that we're doing what we can to try and meet them. And what that means is that we establish these overlay zonings. It's some of the first things that I had to do going to office after the Skibitsky administration, finally resolved or settled with Fair Share. So we have to find this, we have to address this unmet need of 998 units, and we establish these overlay zones and so forth. It doesn't mean it'll all get built, but we have to prove to them that we have made efforts to enable them to happen if they do get built. The stuff that you see on South Avenue and North Avenue, that's part of our overlay zones that's going towards our unmet need. Some of them may never get built, but they are there, and that's what we can say. We've allowed that opportunity. So if that was all built, it would provide approximately 690 units, but they're not. However, under this proposed legislation, if we had to provide for an additional 25% of this unmet need under this new provision, and so we would need to provide for approximately 250 new affordable units. And because affordable is only 15% of the total, it equates to a maximum build out of approximately 1,666 total new units. That's crazy. It's absurd, it's unrealistic, and it's not even in the realm of good planning or policy. So I say this because I want everybody to understand the implications of this. And there's many folks like me and other municipalities that have the same concerns, but I just want everyone to understand. Additionally, the second big concern is that there uncertainty that remains over the extent of municipal immunity from builders' remedy lawsuits. And basically, as you well know, what that means, if we don't make the effort to meet our obligation, builders can take it to court and sue us, and you could end up with a much bigger project than what you would have to do otherwise. Many municipalities have seen that happen, and I'll be honest with you, nobody ever wins a builder's remedy lawsuit in court. So that, combined with the context of the 25% obligation, we would lose sovereignty of our own planning and zoning policies under the threat of costly litigation. So I've been working with the New Jersey League of Municipalities in my capacity as an executive board member. I get regular updates. We've been talking to John Drill, our affordable housing attorney, trying to give them what we need. I'm also reaching out directly to influential state Senate members to communicate our position to ensure and hope for a more equitable and rational outcome. So we'll see. As written, the one-size-fits-all legislation currently under consideration is not one that I would recommend supporting. It's not in the best interest of Westfield. And I want to just go on the record that we are supporters of affordable housing. We are probably in exceptional standing with the Fair Share housing setting, and we should be very, very proud of that. We are a fully compliant town, and our record and commitment to affordable housing speaks for itself. Look no further than the veterans' housing that we just approved. That being said, I implore the legislature to slow down the advancement of both of these bills until our concerns and those of other municipalities can be adequately and fairly addressed. So I'll keep you posted, but I just want to bring everybody's attention and highlight what is happening in Trenton, and it's happening fast. Okay, so on our legislative front, we are going to have several ordinances on second reading tonight from the Finance Policy Committee. We have the bond ordinance authorizing the purchase of the single-family home at 1037 Central Avenue, which is adjacent to the Firehouse No. 2 property, which we introduced last meeting. As we discussed, the property owner is finally ready to sell his property, and it's a property that we've been seeking to purchase for over 15 years to accommodate the future expansion renovation of Firehouse No. 2. I do just want to remind everybody that the current firehouse is going to stay there indefinitely, so even if it has to stay there at Firehouse No. 2 for decades, it can. This is really only impacting a long overdue and needed upgrade to a new headquarters to address things like proper contaminant protocols, female firefighters, and other things. So we're hopefully adopting that ordinance tonight. And then we also have an ordinance out of the Code Review and Town Property Committee to clarify permitted awning sign dimensions, which I think it went through the planning board for compliance last week. So with that, let's get to work. Ms. Loshley, are there any advertised hearings?
Yes, Mayor, there are 3 advertised hearings tonight, starting with Special Ordinance 2024-01, bond ordinance to authorize the acquisition of real property for future use in connection with the expansion of fire department facilities in and for the town of Westfield in the county of Union, state of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $725,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. Anyone wishing to be heard on special ordinance number 2024-01, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, Mayor, you may close the hearing.
This hearing is closed.
Next is General Ordinance 2024-05, an ordinance to amend the land use ordinance of the town of Westfield to clarify permitted awning sign dimensions. Anyone wishing to be heard on General Ordinance 2024-05, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, Mayor, you may close the hearing.
This hearing is closed.
Last is General Ordinance 2024-06, an ordinance to amend certain provisions in the land use ordinance of the town of Westfield relating to projecting signs. Anyone wishing to be heard on General Ordinance 2024-06, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, Mayor, you may close the hearing.
This hearing is closed. Councilman Hapgood, please move for the adoption of special ordinance number 2024-01.
I'd like to move for the adoption of special ordinance number 2024-01 on second reading, bond ordinance to authorize the acquisition of real property for future use in connection with the expansion of the fire department facilities in, by, and for the town of Westfield in the county of Union, New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $725,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second. Who did? Thank Councilman Armento. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Council members Hapgood,
Yes.
Dardia,
Yes.
Nomagala,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Saunders,
Yes.
Armento,
Yes.
Contract, Mackey, Mayor Rizzo.
Yes, this motion is carried. Councilman Contract, please move Code Review and Town Property ordinances.
I would like to move for the adoption of General Ordinance Number 2024-05 on second reading, an ordinance to amend the land use ordinance of the town of Westfield to clarify permitted awning sign dimensions.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Saunders. Any
Some
discussion?
guy over there.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Council members Hapgood,
Yes.
Dardia,
Yes.
Nomagala,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Saunders,
Yes.
Armento,
Yes.
Contract,
Yes.
Mackey, Mayor Rizzo.
Yes, this motion is carried.
Next, I'd like to move for the adoption of General Ordinance Number 2024-06 on second reading, an ordinance to amend certain provisions of the land use ordinance of the town of Westfield related to projecting signs.
May I have a second?
Yes.
Second by Councilman Mackey. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmembers Hopkins,
Yes.
Dardian,
Yes.
Domagala,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Saunders,
Yes.
Armento,
Yes.
Contract,
Yes.
Mackey. Yes. Mayor Benjamin.
Yes, this motion is carried. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the Town Council Conference and regular meetings of February 27, 2024? By Councilman Mackey, woman, sorry. Second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hapgood. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? This motion is carried. Now it's time for open discussion by citizens. Anyone may come up to the microphone and speak to the council on any subject on which we have jurisdiction. Please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes. No one? I was waiting for you, Keith.
Did it when there was no one here, too. Good evening, members of council. My name is Keith Hertel, and I live at 241 East Dudley Avenue. I rise tonight to lend a few observations. I have lived at my present address for 51 years, and in Westfield 56 years come June. I dare say that is longer than almost anyone on the dais. In my years living in Westfield, I have served as president of many of our civic organizations, served on the Board of Education, served as chairman of the Recreation Commission, founded the Westfield Soccer Association, founding board chair of Imagine, a center for coping with loss, founder of the American Heart Association in Westfield, past president, member of the Y Board, past chair of the Major Gifts Division of the United Way, presently in my 8th year as president of the New Jersey Festival Orchestra, ad nauseum. I mention these not to impress anyone, rather to impress upon you my dedication, commitment, and love of Westfield. During the last 56 years, I have witnessed harmony and great community spirit. In that time, only on 2 occasions have I witnessed our town government not listen to the will of the citizens, and both resulted in distrust of our government and failure. ShopRite and the building of 3 parking decks, all under Republican majorities. And now I see history repeating itself. I see a divided community. Brightwood Park and the Edison Project both went down to defeat because, in my opinion, our council and Board of Education did not listen to the collective community. We now have a lawsuit against the size of the development downtown, further dividing the community. Most citizens want development, but not to the size being planned. I hear citizens excoriating newly elected councilman because his family owns property in town. This very fact should be celebrated, not denounced. Further, this very family has been here for generations, and many of their relatives have moved back to Westfield. What an endorsement. As to Councilman Saunders, I have known him since he's 14-year-old freshman at Westfield High School, who made the varsity soccer team. Very few freshmen make the varsity soccer team. He made it through hard work, dedication, and perseverance. This enthusiasm he carried to William & Mary College, where he excelled in track. He then began and built his own business, employing hundreds of workers, which has allowed him to purchase a nice home in Westfield. Since when we as a country have vilified success, especially someone that is homegrown. Now, here we are. I personally know everyone on the dais, save 2 folks. Everyone I consider an intelligent person, dedicated to their respective constituents and friends. So how is it that we can't get along? As soon as you take your seat, you are no longer Democrats or Republicans. You are representatives of all the people in your wards, whether you agree with them or not. Mayor, if you will allow me a sports analogy, you have just been the winning coach of the Super Bowl. And as now, during the off-season, you have, through drafts and trades, collected new players to assemble into your system and game plan. They come from different systems and may have different ideas. You welcome them. Their ideas, their energy. And now to continue your winning ways, you need to fold them into your vision as a team. I have chaired many different organizations, and I have found that the best results and the most solid results occur when there is an exchange of ideas and consensus. Mayor, you are our leader. We need your leadership. Embrace our new councilmen. Listen to their comments, ideas, etc. They're not your enemies. Being kind requires intentionality by being mindful of our words and actions and constantly trying to build each other up rather than tearing each other down. Perhaps a joint lunch, dinner, retreat for all to get to know each other may help. Believe me, we the citizens are behind you all. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Greg Casco, 434 Everson Place. I say Happy New Year because this is the first council meeting I've been to, I think, since November. While I was away, I was able to watch the council meetings on Facebook and YouTube, thanks to this administration. Back in the day, it was TV 36 if the cameras were working. Sometimes you had to wait a couple days. Before I approached the microphone tonight, I was looking up online, Council on Local Mandates, Code of Ethics. And two things I want to address tonight. Just want to read one of these. And I think it may or may not have to do with the letter that was signed by 4 councilmen regarding crime and other issues in Westfield that was sent to the state. But under A, council impartiality, number 3, it states, a council member shall neither initiate nor consider ex parte communications about substantive matters concerning a pending or impending matter coming before the council. The council or any of its members so authorized by the council may, with the consent of all parties, confer separately with the parties or their counsel in an effort to mediate or settle matters pending before the council. I don't know if that applies or not. I'm not here to excoriate anybody, but what I'm here to do is I'm here to provide some facts. And at the last meeting, I saw Rob Galgano, a resident, appear before this council. He played a video from Councilman Saunders' campaign, and it was last year. I believe it was a campaign video expressing his fears regarding 1 Westfield Place and what might happen should 1 Westfield Place come to town. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but after Rob sat down, Councilman Saunders had brought up the fact that we all own property in Westfield. We all should build each other up. We should all be happy that, we're able to afford to live here. In fact, some council members live in town. I'm assuming he meant the downtown central business district. But the difference is there's 9 of you that are on town council. The rest of the population is not on town council. We don't get to vote on matters that you vote on in executive session. During that video, and if you will, I'm trying to bring it up here, Councilman Saunders, you had mentioned about your fears of what your father's business, which you have the potential to inherit, what might happen to that building once 1 Westfield Place comes to town. And at the February 13th meeting, you had made another comment that kind of, in my opinion, contradicts that. And if you'll bear with me, I'll play it. I have to go to videos. Here it is.
You mentioned my opposition of 1 Westfield Place. I want to be clear, that has nothing to do with my inheritance.
So, in one video, again, back in last year's campaign season, when you had played that video or you had made that video, you had stated the following.
This building for a very long time, he pays almost $150,000 in property taxes, and he's scared, and I'm scared, because I'll probably be one of the people that inherits and helps manage the building. What is this building going to be once One Westfield Place comes? What?
So, in my opinion, I'm looking at those two statements and wondering which one is it. I applaud your family for being able to raise you here. My parents raised me here. I raised my daughters here. For those that may not know, we're downsizing. And I wish One Westfield Place was available now, because I want to stay in town. We're looking for other places to move locally. But this is a great town council. I've been coming to town council meetings since 2010 religiously.
Mr. Caskey, you're almost out of time.
I'll be out of here in 10 seconds. And I can assure you, in my appearances at those town council meetings, it wasn't fair. And I will say that since 2017, things have changed. I'm a registered Republican, now an independent. But this town council, this administration, has given me a listening ear when councils before didn't. And I think you've been very fair with the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Boys, 122 Ferris Place. Good evening, Mayor and Council. There's been much discussion in the last several meetings regarding legal expenses incurred by the town in the defense of the lawsuits against Prospect Ferris and One Westfield Place. And I happened to be watching a replay of, actually it was the last council meeting, in which the mayor responded to I guess an inquiry by a resident regarding those expenses and how they were not being picked up by indemnification agreements. And I believe you indicated with respect to the Sophia that there was no redevelopment agreement in place. And that seemed very odd to me because I remember, in fact, that there was. So I went back and I looked at the redevelopment agreement for Prospect Ferris, which was adopted back in May of 2022. And I went to section 8.9, indemnification, and I'm going to ask with you to bear with me for a moment, but I'm going to read that for those who are listening at home. Okay, the redeveloper for themselves and their successors and assigns, covenant and agree at its sole cost and expense to indemnify, defend, and hold harmless the town, its governing body, their respective officers, employees, agents, attorneys, and consultants, representatives and employees, agents, attorneys, consultants, and their respective assigns and successors from any third-party claims, liabilities, losses, costs, damages, penalties and expenses, including reasonable attorney's fees, resulting from or in connection with acts or omissions of the redeveloper and or of the redeveloper's agents, employees, or consultants in connection with the redevelopment, financing, design, construction, operation, or maintenance of the project. So, in short, and really the town is to be commended for negotiating a very strong and comprehensive indemnification agreement. Yet you allege that the town incurred $20,000 in attorney's expenses in defending the Sophia project. And I guess I'm a little confused, and I'm trying to understand how we could have incurred fees that do not fall within that very, very broad indemnification agreement. It makes no sense to negotiate such a fine agreement which is in the best interest of the town and then not enforce it. So I guess perhaps we could drill down a little bit more with regard to those expenses. And if you could, with some specificity, indicate where those expenses are coming from? Is it a case that the developer is refusing to pick up those costs that he willingly agreed to within the confines of this agreement? Quite honestly, I'm just a little confused, and if you could offer some more details on that, I'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Carla Bonacci, 603 Lawrence Avenue. 2 weeks ago, I raised that there is a need for community-based planning for the scattered sites. The scattered sites are four sites totaling 4 acres. There should be comprehensive design guidelines. Community-based planning could produce a set of comprehensive design guidelines to set the vision for what the full community wants and its priorities, rather than being on our back foot reacting to some developer proposal. Tonight, you adopted 2 separate narrowly targeted sign ordinances, and the ordinances do not provide an overall sense of what all signs should strive to be within the community context. There are no examples or sketches of what is expected in Westfield. I looked up Summit's design guidelines and Morristown's design guidelines, and they clearly have a nice set of signage guidelines that could be exemplars for us. And I know that Tom Dardine mentioned section 3.7, but my point is that you have to slog through various sections of the zoning ordinance when it would be nice if it was all in one place. We also checked the Downtown Westfield Corporation website, and there's nothing in that regard other than they help people fund it. We have these opportunities like the scattered sites to shape our town in proper planning sequence. It's also not too late for the North Avenue overlay zone, which has developed in an ad hoc fashion with the Franklin 500 North Avenue, and there's another little building with these wings at the roof. Now is the time for the town to develop and adopt some comprehensive design guidelines for these substantial development parcels that can be supported by the community. The council could identify and establish a working committee of residents and business operators to help town staff to advance this effort. That need not be costly nor time-consuming. There are models to emulate. Let's collaborate towards consensus before it's too late, and start small with signage guidelines. Thank you.
Carrie Murphy, 502 Cotting Road. As always, these are my views alone. At the last council meeting, the administration took time to read text from a recent litigation, and in my view, it felt like publicly shaming those taxpaying residents, members of the Westfield advocates, and others for proactively trying to save their town from massive overdevelopment that, again, in my view, was forced upon taxpayers by this administration. The following is a small portion of the text that's concerning, as I feel it belittles residents who don't support the current agenda. Here's the portion. It's important to know that the Westfield Advocates litigation has so far cost taxpayers $70K to defend, $50K for One Westfield Place, and $20K for the Sophia. Thank you for that clarity on the Sophia. They have now filed an appeal in the Sophia case where the taxpayers will once again foot the bill to defend a lawsuit that advocates themselves has admittedly they have little to no chance of winning, while they also continue to solicit donations to support their legal fees in both cases. With that being said, and with the litigation behind us, I want to reassure those who have concerns about One Westfield Place that we hear you. You do? I honestly feel that statement is hard to believe, since we've been asking many questions, bringing up many concerns, and so far almost zero of them have been answered that I know of, but I could be wrong. If you did in fact hear us, taxpayers would not be getting up here week after week, month after month, and now year after year, writing LTEs, sending emails, and that generally go unanswered. What's being communicated in these meetings and the Facebook posts we get by the administration as it relates to One Westfield Place and other overdevelopments can begin to feel like empty words. As many are aware, and I believe the administration is as well, there were a number of things that came into play well before the litigation. Just in case, here's a brief refresher of some of the things that I can recall. During the COVID global lockdown, the town was blighted, thus rendering taxpayers essentially without a voice. Our right to vote, a legal vote, was stripped from us based on the entire town being deemed as blighted, as I understand it. By blighting the entire town, taxpayers not only lost their voice, but the administration gained more power. Power to change zoning laws and other such extremely important things that helped to keep Westfield the charming town that it was. The town we all moved to spent lots of money on a house to raise our families, created memories. Essentially, the integrity of our town, as we know it, felt lost when too much power was gained by the administration and lost by the residents. When we went through all of the meetings and the Zoom calls, and that we care so much about your opinions and other such nonsensical phrases, all the smoke and mirror games, we realized it was a smoke and mirrors games, and our voices didn't really come into play, and that there was a greater plan that didn't involve us. The taxpayers had some very important questions and received few answers, to my knowledge, and no, sending people to an FAQ doesn't count as answers in my book. The administration denied us a non-binding referendum vote. They said it was not legal. Taxpayers showed proof that it was legal. However, during one of the council meetings, we were told we would not get a non-binding vote because they didn't want an up and down vote. The administration essentially ignored a petition that was signed by well over 2,500 residents who had concerns. It was ignored, and we were told, as it is not all common in these meetings, that we didn't have the facts or we were misinformed, etc. The administration didn't really consider the Tap Into survey that was done. It was pretty much reflected which pretty much reflected the same that the petition did. So you see, long before litigation came into play, we went down many different paths to try and get an understanding, to try and get answers, and to try and be heard by and taxpayers faced roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. Funny though, I thought the developers didn't seem to face roadblocks. In many ways, and in my view, the red carpet was rolled out. It seemed they were actually taking the reins. So before we try to shame taxpayers, we should lay out what came before the litigation. While on this subject, if you're going to reference wasting taxpayer dollars, perhaps we should reference some more waste, or at least, a little bit, perhaps. One of the biggest drains on the taxpayer may not be immediate, but down the line will be that over the decades-long life of the Streetworks pilot, the residents of Westfield will likely have to pay millions more to fund our schools because Streetworks is paying nothing toward the school budget for the development properties, as is the nature of a pilot, unless there's been some earmarked by the municipality, which I haven't heard. The $250,000 for the installation of water and electricity for a restaurant at the train station, why again is that a taxpayer burden 2 years down the line? Do we have a general idea of the number of tax dollars that have been spent since 2020 on the overdevelopment projects, the consultants, the meetings, the presentations,
Ms. Murphy, I'm
et
sorry,
cetera?
you're
Please,
out
let's
of
try
you're out
and
of
stop
time.
shaming taxpayers who are
So,
concerned
thank you.
about a town they love. Enough is enough, okay?
Thank you
Let's
very
let
much.
mockery and democracy not confuse each other.
Thank you. Seeing none, I close this portion of the meeting. Just to address a few things, so Mr. Hertel, thank you for coming. Thank you for your decades of service to Westfield. Appreciate the comment. The good news, in spite of you sitting here, I think the 9 of us are doing a pretty good job of getting along, and I think we would all agree with that. And I think our meetings in committees and behind the scenes have been cordial, cooperative. We've had very collaborative. So you should, in spite of maybe what you're assuming, I think actually what we're discovering is that we're working really well together. And so I think that's great news. I was kind of chuckled when you mentioned a retreat. I think the sunshine laws might have a problem with us going on a retreat together. And I mean, the downside, quite frankly, of those sunshine laws, it does preclude us from actually spending time together as a group, as you well know. So, but I think in spite of that, so far in the short amount of time we worked together, that it's been cordial, collegial, and respectful. And I think we're going to continue to do that. And I'd like to feel like their ideas have been heard and vice versa. So you should feel great, and our community should feel great about that.
That declaration in and of itself will please the community.
So, well, it should,
I second the motion.
So, I don't think anybody's arguing with that. I don't want to pretend I'm speaking for everybody, but that's certainly the way it's been, and it's been a really great, I think, pleasant surprise for probably all of us, and so the community should feel really great about that. Tom, do you want to address Mr. Boyes' comments about the legal costs? Because we're not making it up, just so you know.
Yeah, I thought you might ask me that, Mayor.
Yeah.
And as you know, I neither drafted or negotiated that, so I'm going to punt for tonight because I want to consult with redevelopment council and get back to the council on that, okay?
Got it.
But, Mr. Jardine, before you leave the mic, my understanding of the indemnification clause that Mr. Boyes read at the mic is that the only time that the developer would be responsible is if they did not stand up to their responsibilities. So it says a lot of things, but what it really comes back to is the fact that you're responsible if you don't uphold your own obligations under the agreement.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, that had nothing to do with the case that was brought by the Westfield advocates against the Sophia.
Yeah, I think he was reading from a section, I think 9.8 of that redevelopment agreement. I don't think that's a correct, 8.9, sorry. And I think the correct section is actually the definition of town costs, and that's why I have to consult with Mr. Malenik on that. So.
Thank you. And Ms. Bonacci, your comments are duly noted, which will be passed on to Don Samet. And Councilman Mackey, who's chair of the code review
Not
committee.
anymore, but I was when we
sorry.
talked about the signs in the first place. We agree with you. Our sign ordinance is very convoluted, and it is something that we have been working behind the scenes, and Summit has been the gold standard of a community that has a very clear ordinance to follow. It's not an easy thing to undo, but it is something that Don Samet has already been looking at for quite some time. Tonight's second reading ordinance was really just tweaking, fine-tuning ordinances that already existed. And when we did the blade sign ordinance a few years ago, it was far more extensive. There were many photos and samples, and we did a walk around town. So to allay your concerns, that was absolutely done. And I will say that even though our ordinance is complicated, we have an outstanding design chair in Peg Lockwood, who's been with the Downtown Westfield Corporation for 15 or 20 years, and she handholds everybody. The Downtown Westfield Corporation provides sign facade assistance, and they really do an amazing job. I believe every time somebody comes into town and avails themselves, we see something that's wonderfully in keeping with the district's sensibilities, and I think you can look forward to more of that in the future.
And Ms. Murphy, your comments are duly noted, and we had a very good conversation about pilots in schools in the conference session, which I think was very informative for everybody there. So, Jim, Mr. O'Kelly and I met with the school district yesterday to specifically talk about schools and needs and capital projects, et cetera. So I can only assure you and the public that we have a probably closest relationship with the school than we've ever had in the history. And it's in our best interest to make sure that we have well-funded, well-educated kids to make sure that Westfield maintains one of the primary reasons why people choose to move here. And we are committed to doing that. So with that, we will move on to, oh, and I'm sorry, Councilman Saunders. I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Do you want to address that comment?
Yeah, if I can address Mr. Casco's comment and Mr. Hertel's comment. First, Mr. Hertel, appreciate the kind words, and I want to echo what Mayor Brindle said. I do feel like, and I think I can speak for a lot of us, I don't want to say most of us, that things are very cordial and we are working very well here together, but I think that takes the entire council, and I think it takes help with the residents as well. Mr. Casco, to your question on that video, I've addressed it a few times, so I'm not really gonna address it again, but I guess my ask for you is in order to keep us united and the town united, we need to focus on topics facing our town, right? There's really difficult things facing our town that we're all sharing ideas, agreeing and disagreeing, and we all wanna unite here. I had a lot of residents from last meeting and the meeting before come up to me and say, why do you do this? Right, you go up, you lend your time, you go up here, and all people do is go up there and try to crush you for personal matters. And I just hope that as residents and as the council, we don't do that to people up here, people that are giving their time, because we want other people up here helping the town. We want residents, we want to talk about real key issues. So my ask for you is like, let's try to focus on uniting the council, let's try to focus on uniting the town, and let's focus on real issues facing the town. I'm happy to talk to you about anything else personal outside of that, but I really don't think I need to address that again. And again, I want to echo what the mayor said. We're working really well together up here. I'm not sure if you can see it from that side, but I'll be the first one to say the first few meetings were rocky, but we got there and we're heading in a good direction.
Sure.
I was not going to say anything, but I just can't sit here in good conscience and let Todd always have to defend himself. That one of us saying something, and I would say this, if the comments were made about anybody else in the council, there have been multiple people that have said this multiple times, that Todd has some sort of ethical issue that needs to be resolved, without citing or some standard by which this should be measured against. And without that, these comments are nothing more than gratuitous attacks, and I, for one, will hope that they stop after tonight. If you think that Mr. Saunders should somehow recuse himself or step down, make a formal application, and we'll hear it, or somebody will hear it, whatever the standard is. But to keep coming up here and commenting on this young man's finances and his father is getting absurd. And so I would say this if it happened to anybody else in the council, and he shouldn't have to defend himself by himself every week on this. That's all.
Okay, so, all right,
Mayor, if I could just address one
Sure.
thing. With respect to, there is a local government ethics law, as all of you know, and you are all bound by it, as all public officials are. And to the extent that anybody has to take action on something in which they may have a conflict, we will provide you the legal guidance at that time when it's necessary to determine whether to recuse yourself. I can assure the mayor and the council that that advice and guidance is not going to be given in this forum or in public. Yes, you all, of course, take your obligations under the local government ethics law seriously, and when the time comes for a vote to be taken, and if you have to recuse, we'll have that discussion then.
thank you. Okay, so moving on to bills and claims, Councilman Hapgood.
I'd like to move bills and claims in the amount of $653,261.96.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Councilman Domagala, any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? This motion is carried. Next on the agenda is reports of standing committees, beginning with the Finance Policy Committee. Councilman Hapgood.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 7 resolutions, 6 of which I'd like to move as a package. The first, a resolution authorizing the CFO to draw a warrant to replenish bulk mail permit. 2, a resolution authorizing the CFO to draw a warrant for dog licenses for February 2024. 3, a resolution authorizing the CFO to draw a warrant for overpaid taxes. 4, a resolution authorizing the CFO to refund Recreation Department fees. 5, a resolution authorizing the CFO to refund Police Department fees. And 6, a resolution authorizing the CFO to refund street opening cash bond.
May I have a second? Second by Councilman Mackey. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Opposed? This motion has carried.
And then I'd also like to move a resolution authorizing the CFO to make a budget transfer.
May I have a second? Second by Councilman Contract. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmembers Hagman,
Yes.
Guardian,
Yes.
Domagala,
Yes.
Hoover,
Yes.
Saunders?
Yes.
Armento?
Yes.
Contract? Yes. Mackey? Yes. Mayor Brindle?
Yes, this motion is carried. Next up is Public Safety, Transportation, and Parking Committee. Councilman Dardia.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move a resolution authorizing a maintenance agreement with Flock Safety for automated license plate readers.
May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Saunders. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? This motion has carried. May I have a motion? Oh,
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
just before
Yeah,
you
go
end the
ahead,
meeting,
yes.
I just wanted to remind everyone that the next council meeting 2 weeks from today is the presentation of the budget. So I would encourage all of you to come and
Bring your friends.
participate. You're gonna like it. So,
May I have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Councilman Mackey, second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Dardia. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? This motion is carried, and this meeting is adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good night.